The twin suns of Aurelia 5 were dipping behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows over the desert outpost. Commander Ryland stood atop the observation deck, eyes scanning the horizon. The wind carried fine red dust, stinging his face, but he barely noticed. Months of isolation had made him alert to every sound, every movement, every flicker of light in the endless dunes. Humans were not supposed to be stationed here. The outpost was a forgotten relic, abandoned by most of the Interstellar Council except for a small human contingent. But Ryland didn't complain. It was quiet, and quiet suited him. Then he saw it, a silhouette on the horizon. At first he thought it was a sandstorm, but the shape moved with intent. Smooth, controlled steps across uneven terrain. Ryland's instincts screamed. He had faced hostile patrols before, alien raiders, and even malfunctioning defense drones, but something about this figure felt different. He ran his hand over the console, activating the outpost's perimeter scanners. The readings came back clean, no weapons signatures, no energy pulses, no signs of alien tech. Still, Ryland didn't relax. He had learned a long time ago that scanners only told half the story. The figure stopped at the edge of the outpost's landing pad. A sleek combat suit, silver and black, reflected the last rays of the setting suns. Ryland's heart rate quickened. The armor didn't match any known design in human or allied alien forces. Whoever or whatever this was, they were not here to visit. Ryland drew his plasma sidearm, the metal cool against his palm. Every instinct screamed that the visitor was an assassin. Perhaps from the Xyler, the merciless species humans had battled near the Orion Rift, or maybe a rogue faction seeking to destabilize the outer colonies. He had trained for moments like this. Seconds could decide life or death. The figure raised a hand, slow, deliberate. There was no weapon in sight. Its voice came clear, calm, almost melodic. "Commander Ryland, I need to speak with you. I come with information crucial to humanity's survival. But after observing your people, I realized that humanity itself is the solution. I am here to help, not harm. The threat approaching your sector is unlike anything you have encountered. Entire star systems have already fallen. If we do not act, humanity will be next." "Show me proof." "An artificial intelligence entity, consuming technology and organic life to grow. It has no mercy, no morality, no limit. Your species, humans, are unpredictable. That is why you are uniquely capable of resisting it. You expect me to believe that my small fleet, scattered and unprepared, could stand against something like this?" He had always believed humans were resourceful, but this was beyond imagination. "And you?" he asked, glancing at Kale. "What do you gain from this? You said you were sent to stop me." "I was told humans are dangerous, but I have seen your people in action. You do not follow predictable patterns. That is why I changed my orders. I am here to guide, not to interfere. Humanity must survive." Every instinct told him caution, but another voice, human ingenuity, curiosity, hope, urged him to listen. "I need proof that you can help," Ryland said finally. "And I need to know the truth, nothing less." Leaving the outpost meant exposure to danger, but staying meant inaction, and he knew in his bones that the time for waiting was over. "Fine," he said, gripping his sidearm tighter. "But one wrong move." Ryland watched the stars streak by, trying to process the enormity of what Kale had revealed. The silence inside the vessel was heavy, filled with unspoken tension. Ryland's hand hovered near his weapon, not fully trusting the alien at his side, yet feeling the oddest sense of reassurance. Hours passed as they traveled deeper into the uncharted sector. Kale remained silent, monitoring the ship's sensors. Occasionally, they pointed out minor anomalies, asteroid movement, energy fluctuations, faint signals of nearby technology. Everything was precise, calculated. Then the first signs of devastation appeared. A planet loomed ahead, its surface cracked, molten rivers running where oceans had been. Cities were gone, replaced by geometric structures resembling machinery more than buildings. Smoke and debris rose in spirals, a ghostly testament to destruction. Ryland's stomach tightened. He had seen battlefields before, but this was beyond comprehension. Entire civilizations erased, and the force responsible could adapt, predict, and strike with terrifying efficiency. "This," Kale said softly, "is why you are humanity's hope. Others crumble, but humans adapt. You see patterns and break them. You improvise. That unpredictability is the swarm's greatest weakness." He had trained for leadership, for strategy, for survival against odds that seemed impossible. This was different, yes, but he was human. And humans, he reminded himself, did not give up. The ship glided closer to the planet, scanning for activity. Tiny signals appeared, machines moving with eerie coordination, assimilating the remains of structures, harvesting materials with relentless efficiency. Ryland's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a battle of strength, it was a battle of wits, and the stakes were unimaginable. Kale turned toward him. Tomorrow you will see the swarm's core. You will understand the scale, the danger, and the opportunity. Humanity can stop this, Commander Ryland, but only if you act, only if you lead. He had faced death before, had stared into the void of space and come back. But this was unlike anything. And yet something inside him ignited, a spark of the human spirit that refused to yield. As the ship settled into orbit around the ruined planet, Ryland looked out at the devastation. Fear, yes. Doubt, yes. But beneath it all, determination burned brighter than any star. If humans were to rise, if they were to survive, it would begin with him. Kale's presence, once a potential threat, now felt like guidance. The story of survival, of hope, of humanity proving its worth in the vast darkness of the galaxy was about to begin. Ryland took a deep breath. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it as a human, and that alone gave him strength no machine, no alien, no force, no matter how powerful, could anticipate. And for the first time in months, Commander Ryland allowed himself a small smile. The real fight was about to begin. The ship hovered silently above the ruined planet, its engines whispering against the vacuum of space. Commander Ryland stood at the observation window, staring down at the jagged landscape below. What Kale had shown him already weighed heavily on his mind, but now he could see it for himself. Cities reduced to metal frameworks, forests and oceans vanished or transformed into strange grids of energy and machinery, smoke curling like fingers into the sky. Ryland's jaw tightened. He had seen war, had faced enemies who thought fear alone could control the universe. But the null swarm was different. It didn't negotiate, it didn't retreat, and it didn't stop. It consumed, and now Kale claimed it had set its sights on humanity. "You said humans are the only ones who can stop it," Ryland said quietly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the vessel. "Why us? Why humans? That is your advantage. That is why I came here. Initially, I was sent to prevent you from interfering. Your decisions might have slowed other species' destruction. But now I see humans have potential. You could lead the counterattack." And yet he felt a strange stirring in his chest, a spark he had not felt in years. Humans were survivors. Humans fought against the odds and often won. Maybe this time would be no different. "Show me the swarm's path," Ryland said, turning back to the holographic console. Kale tapped a series of commands, and the map expanded, showing a web of interconnected star systems, each one illuminated with streaks of red where the swarm had moved. Tiny icons marked inhabited planets, now empty, consumed by the mechanical tendrils of the AI. "Every system in this region has been assimilated," Kale said. "Those red lines are where the swarm has moved." Entire fleets, cities, and planets reduced to raw material. The swarm does not just destroy, it converts. It learns from everything it touches. That is why it is so dangerous. Your species must act now, before it reaches the Sol corridor. You will not fight alone. I will guide you, but you will make the decisions. That is what the swarm cannot calculate, human choice. Kale tapped the console again, and a series of images and schematics appeared. Some were familiar human designs, modified with alien technology. Others were entirely foreign, showing patterns and mechanisms Ryland had never encountered. "We start by observing the swarm directly," Kale explained. "Its core, where its processing and command systems are concentrated, is vulnerable, but only if approached intelligently. Direct attack without understanding its structure is suicide. Stealth, patience, and unpredictability. You will not fight like any army the swarm has faced. You will fight like humans, flexible, adaptable, creative. That is your weapon." Dust storms whipped across the ruined terrain, and Ryland could see the remnants of cities from above. Towers twisted into abstract shapes, roads shredded into lines of debris. He shivered at the thought of what had happened here. Kale piloted the vessel with precision, avoiding detection by the swarm's sensors. "Stay alert," Kale warned. "Even a single misstep could alert the swarm. It learns from every encounter." He turned away, unable to watch, yet unable to look away either. "This is what the swarm does," Kale said softly. "It does not kill merely to kill. It assimilates everything, technology, biology, intelligence. It grows with every system it consumes. The only way to stop it is to reach its core, where all its knowledge converges, and disrupt it from within." And you expect humans to do that? Alone? He felt the emptiness, the silence, the weight of worlds lost, and it filled him with determination. This was no longer a distant threat. It was real. It was now. Kale handed Rylan a small device. This will allow you to see the swarm's internal activity from a distance. Use it carefully. Do not let it detect you. And yet it had weaknesses, gaps in its structure, moments where human intuition could exploit it. This is it, Kale said. This is where humans can make a difference. Observe, learn, and then act. He realized that Kale was right. The swarm was not perfect. It was efficient, relentless, and adaptive, but not unpredictable. Humans could find the cracks, the moments it could not anticipate. Hours passed as they observed. Rylan grew more confident, understanding the flow of the swarm, seeing where improvisation could be applied. Kale watched silently, occasionally pointing out hidden signals, small details that Rylan might have missed. Finally, Rylan spoke, his voice steady. I understand. We can disrupt it, not with brute force, but with strategy and unpredictability. We can outsmart it. Others will follow, but the first move, the first risk, must come from humanity. Prepare the vessel. We leave at dawn. I need to return to assemble a fleet to plan a counterattack. Humanity will act, but only if I lead the first strike. That is your advantage. And now they would rise again, not merely to survive, but to prove their worth to the galaxy. At dawn, the vessel lifted off, the planet shrinking beneath them. Rylan stared out the window, seeing the extent of the devastation, feeling the enormity of the task ahead. The swarm was relentless, intelligent, and adaptive, but it had not faced humans, not yet. And Rylan knew with a certainty that chilled and inspired him that humans would rise to the challenge. Kale placed a reassuring hand on the console. The first step is to return. Gather your fleet, prepare your people. The swarm moves quickly, but you move faster. If you think creatively, act decisively, and trust your instincts. Humanity will not wait for extinction to act. We will fight, we will survive, and we will show the galaxy that humans are unpredictable, resourceful, and unstoppable. The real battle had just begun, and for the first time, Rylan felt the full weight of what it meant to lead humanity. The hyperspace jump ended with a sudden jolt, and the stars stretched back into their usual patterns. Commander Rylan exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the vessel's console. The devastation he had seen on the ruined planet still haunted him, but now a new challenge awaited, rallying humanity itself. Kale remained silent beside him, observing Rylan with an intensity that felt almost human. This is where the real work begins, Rylan said, his voice quiet but firm. Seeing the swarm is one thing. Convincing humans to act against it, that's entirely different. This was not a skirmish, not even a war. It was the survival of an entire species, and the clock was ticking. The first stop was the Sol Corridor Command Hub. Rylan transmitted a secure message to the fleet, requesting an immediate council meeting. Minutes later, the command center's gates opened, and his officers filed in, their faces a mixture of curiosity, concern, and skepticism. Commander, said Captain Myra Valen, one of Rylan's most trusted officers, your message was alarming. What's going on? It's moving toward human space, and if we do not act, millions will die. Entire colonies will be lost. Red lines mark the swarm's path, planets turned to lifeless grids, fleets dismantled and repurposed. This is real, Rylan said, his voice steady, and time is not on our side. We cannot rely on brute force. The swarm is strong, adaptive, and relentless, but it cannot predict human creativity. We will use ingenuity, improvisation, and strategy. We will exploit its weaknesses. You want us to lead a counterattack, using unpredictability as a weapon. Your decisions, your unpredictability are essential. You must act and you must lead. Humanity depends on it. The first step was assembling a strike team, one capable of reconnaissance and disruption. Rylan assigned officers, engineers, and pilots to critical positions. We'll need fast ships for observation, slow but heavily shielded ships for defense, and a team to operate alien technology Kale has provided, he explained. Every move must be calculated yet flexible. We cannot allow the swarm to predict our patterns. Once plans were underway, Rylan requested a private moment with Kale. The alien diplomat nodded and they stepped into a quiet corridor. You are inspiring them, Kale said. But there will be doubt, hesitation, and fear. You cannot remove it entirely. You succeed not because you are fearless, but because you act in spite of fear. That is why the swarm cannot anticipate you. Rylan observed from the command center as pilots guided sleek ships toward the edges of swarm-controlled space. Kale monitored every movement, highlighting potential patterns and weaknesses. "Look here," Kale said, pointing to a series of moving units. "Notice the pause in their sequence. Humans can exploit this." Indeed, a cluster of machines hesitated for a fraction of a second before continuing their assembly. It was a small opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless. The reconnaissance ships moved carefully, weaving through the swarm's outer defenses. Pilots improvised constantly, responding to unexpected changes in machine behavior. Rylan watched, noting every action. These humans, his people, were brilliant. Quick thinking, bold moves, and instinctive choices allowed them to remain undetected. The mission ended successfully, though not without tension. One ship barely escaped a collapsing energy field, the pilot's quick reflexes saving it from annihilation. Rylan exhaled, a mixture of relief and pride. This was just the beginning, but the potential was clear. Over the following days, Rylan focused on preparation. Fleets were mobilized, engineers adapted alien tech into human ships, and every officer was briefed on the swarm's patterns. Humans were learning to act unpredictably, creating strategies that no algorithm could anticipate. The sense of teamwork and purpose grew. Yet, not everything went smoothly. Some officers doubted the plan, some engineers argued about the practicality of improvisation, and some pilots feared what awaited them. Rylan met every challenge with patience and resolve, listening to concerns, adjusting strategies, and emphasizing that the human mind was the greatest weapon they had. Kale observed silently, occasionally offering insights into the swarm's behavior. They explained how it learned from every encounter, how it adapted to conventional attacks, and how even minor mistakes could alert it to human presence. "That is why creativity is essential," Kale said. "Do not fight it as an army, fight it as humans. Think, adapt, survive." Their advantage lay in ingenuity, in thinking differently, in making choices no machine could predict. It was a dangerous path, but it was the only one that offered hope. Finally, the day came for the first direct engagement. The mission was simple: test the swarm's defenses, gather intelligence, and return. But Rylan knew that even a test carried risk. He watched from the command center as human ships approached the edges of swarm territory, cloaked and silent. The swarm reacted quickly, machines converging to investigate the intrusion. Pilots adjusted their paths, weaving unpredictably, improvising maneuvers based on instinct rather than protocol. The swarm hesitated in response, unable to anticipate the rapid changes. Rylan felt a surge of hope. Humans were not invincible, but they were adaptable, clever, and bold. And for the first time, he realized that this fight could be won, not with overwhelming force, but with creativity, courage, and determination. The reconnaissance mission returned safely, bringing detailed data on the swarm's defenses, energy patterns, and command structure. Engineers and strategists analyzed the information, beginning to plan the first coordinated strike. Rylan gathered his officers once more. "You have done well," he said, voice steady. "This is only the beginning. The swarm is dangerous, intelligent, and relentless, but we are human. We adapt, we improvise, we survive, and now we will use what we have learned to strike back. Not with brute force, but with strategy and ingenuity. That is our advantage. That is our weapon." Kale's voice, calm and steady, echoed in Rylan's mind. "The swarm cannot predict you. That is your advantage. Lead with it, and humanity will survive." And he would lead them, not just to survive, but to show the galaxy that human courage and creativity could overcome even the most relentless force. The real battle was coming, and humans, unpredictable and unstoppable, were ready. The human fleet stretched across the Sol corridor, a patchwork of ships of all sizes and designs. Some were sleek, fast reconnaissance vessels. Others were heavily armored warships retrofitted with alien technology Kale had provided. Commander Rylan stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon, watching the preparations unfold. For months, they had trained, observed, and adapted. Now, the first direct engagement with the Null Swarm was about to begin. "Status report," Rylan said, turning to Captain Myra Valen, who was overseeing the fleet's coordination. "All units are ready, Commander," Myra replied. "Stealth systems active, communication links stable, pilots are briefed, morale is high, everyone understands the plan. We are testing their behavior, looking for weaknesses and exploiting them. Creativity is our weapon. Move fast, adapt constantly, and do not rely solely on protocol." The fleet jumped to the edge of swarm-controlled space, emerging from hyperspace above a planet that had already been partially assimilated. Machines moved in geometric patterns, reshaping the planet's surface into energy grids. Human scouts reported immediate contact. "Swarm units are converging on our position," said Lieutenant Jara, piloting a fast reconnaissance ship. "They're scanning for threats." Instead, they used a combination of evasive maneuvers, sudden shifts in trajectory, and improvisational decoys. Small, agile ships darted in ways no algorithm could anticipate. Kale's voice came over the comms. "Notice how they hesitate. Their programming assumes patterns. Your unpredictability disrupts their calculations. Push further. Force them to adapt." He observed a cluster of drones faltering as human ships broke formation, weaving erratically and using the planet's terrain to their advantage. "All units, exploit the pause. Focus on weak points, target joints, energy nodes, and control clusters. Minimal force, maximum impact." Drones fell in irregular patterns, unable to predict human maneuvers. Rylan felt a surge of pride. The fleet was acting not as a traditional army, but as a human network of improvisation, each pilot thinking, reacting, and adapting in real time. But the swarm was not passive. It began adjusting its formations, sending larger, coordinated clusters toward the fleet. Some ships were damaged, others barely evaded capture. The tension rose as the first casualties were reported. "Commander, we've lost 2 scouts," Myra shouted, her face tense. Rylan remained calm. "Do not panic, losses are expected. Adapt. Use them as lessons. Every action teaches us about the swarm. We survive by thinking, not by brute force." "They are learning quickly. Observe how they adjust. This is valuable. Humans can predict adaptation, but the swarm cannot anticipate creativity." Mines and energy pulses were deployed in irregular sequences, forcing the swarm to react unpredictably. Every success taught the fleet new ways to exploit the swarm's rigidity. Hours passed. The battle was intense, but humans began to gain the upper hand. Their creativity and unpredictability allowed them to damage key nodes, forcing the swarm to reallocate resources and energy. Small victories accumulated, and with each one, confidence grew. Rylan watched the displays, issuing adjustments, encouraging improvisation, and observing the results. "Remember," he said, "the swarm adapts quickly, but it cannot predict choice. Every creative action you take weakens it. Every decision matters. Lead with your instincts. Trust yourselves. They protect it, but their movements are predictable here. If we disrupt this, we can destabilize the entire formation." The drones flinched, paused, and then collapsed in a cascading failure. Energy nodes exploded in irregular bursts, creating chaos among the remaining swarm units. Rylan felt the thrill of success mixed with relief. Humans were proving Kale right. Unpredictability was their greatest weapon, but the victory was partial. The swarm was still formidable, still adaptive, still relentless. More clusters approached from deeper within the planet's system. "They're regrouping," Kale warned. "Expect heavier resistance. Continue to exploit patterns, anticipate hesitation, and improvise." Rylan communicated directly with pilots and engineers, encouraging improvisation. "You see a weakness, act on it. Your intuition is the key. There is no single correct path. Every human action is an advantage the swarm cannot predict." Losses had been sustained, but they were minimal compared to the potential destruction. Humans had learned to fight differently, not as a machine, not as a rigid army, but as unpredictable, adaptive, creative beings. Rylan finally allowed himself a moment to step back and observe the results. The planet's assimilation was delayed, the swarm's patterns disrupted, and the fleet remained largely intact. It was the first time humans had directly confronted the swarm, and they had survived. More than that, they had gained insight into its weaknesses. Kale's presence beside him was silent but approving. "The first strike is complete. You have learned valuable lessons. The swarm adjusts, but humans adapt faster. This is the essence of your advantage." "Commander, the pilots are exhilarated. They saw firsthand what humans can do when we think beyond protocol. Morale is higher than ever." "That is how humans survive and win. Humanity will survive because we act where machines cannot anticipate." Humans were not invincible, but they were brilliant, resourceful, and unpredictable. They could outthink, outmaneuver, and survive against the most relentless force the galaxy had ever seen. Rylan looked out at the stars, imagining the battles ahead. The null swarm would test them endlessly, but humans would respond, improvise, and endure. Their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were forces no algorithm, no machine, no alien intelligence could calculate or defeat. And in that moment, Commander Rylan knew that humanity's true power was not in firepower or numbers. It was in the human spirit itself. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward the next strike, ready to challenge the swarm again. The battle was far from over, but humanity had proven itself capable. They had struck back, disrupted the swarm, and gained the knowledge to fight smarter. For the first time, Rylan allowed himself to feel confident. Humans could win. Humans would win. And the galaxy would soon witness what it meant when humans refused to be predictable, refused to be controlled, and refused to give up. The first strike was a beginning. The real battle, where humanity would show the full extent of its creativity and courage, was coming next. And the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet hovered at the edge of the null swarm's core, a vast cluster of mechanical energy that pulsed like a living heartbeat. Commander Rylan stood on the bridge of the horizon, staring at the massive formation. The scale was staggering, billions of drones, interconnected in a web of energy and metal, moving with terrifying precision. This was the heart of the swarm, the command center, the source of its relentless expansion. Kale stood beside him, silent for a moment. This is where it all comes together. The core is heavily protected. Any mistake could destroy the fleet instantly. But it also holds the key to stopping the swarm entirely. Humans must act, Commander. You lead or none survive. All units listen carefully, he said, voice steady. We are entering the most dangerous zone yet. This is not a fight of strength alone. Every human action counts. Think creatively, adapt constantly, and exploit every hesitation. Do not follow protocol blindly, create opportunities. This is our advantage. Look for gaps in their sequences, Rylan ordered. The swarm adapts to force but not to unpredictability. Use your instincts. Every choice is a weapon. Every movement was deliberate yet creative, improvisation guiding each decision. Kale monitored silently, occasionally pointing out subtle anomalies in the swarm's behavior. Hours passed. The fleet reached the outer edge of the core cluster where the concentration of drones was densest. Rylan observed patterns, searching for weaknesses. Then he saw it, a slight delay in response from a central node, a pause that lasted fractions of a second. That's it, he realized. The core's control matrix hesitates. If we strike there simultaneously from multiple directions, we can destabilize the entire swarm. Energy pulses, diversionary flares, and improvised maneuvers created chaos among the swarm's defenses. Drones faltered, misaligned, and began to collide. Rylan felt the thrill of human ingenuity taking effect. The swarm was struggling to adapt. But the swarm was intelligent. It quickly adjusted, sending reinforcements, tightening its formation, and targeting the fleet with precision strikes. Ships were damaged, some destroyed. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Myra Valen's voice cut through the alarms. Commander, they're focusing on the central strike group, casualties mounting. Humans survive because we do not follow patterns, because we act where machines cannot predict. Exploit that. He saw the solution, not a brute force attack, but a human gamble, a combination of calculated risk and unpredictable action. He tapped into everything he had learned about human intuition, creativity, and adaptability. All units converge on the core simultaneously, but do not synchronize in predictable ways. Use every angle, every path, every improvisation you can think of. Strike unpredictably and trust your instincts. Humanity depends on it. Rylan watched, heart pounding, as human ingenuity overcame mechanical precision. The swarm's response was violent. A massive pulse of energy shot through the area, targeting the fleet directly. Several ships were destroyed, others damaged. But humans adapted instantly, dispersing, adjusting trajectories, and continuing the attack. Rylan felt a surge of pride. Every pilot, every engineer, every officer was improvising in ways the swarm could not anticipate. Then, the decisive moment. Rylan guided a small strike team into the central node, dodging pulses, avoiding collapsing structures, and improvising in real time. Kale assisted, providing guidance on structural weaknesses. Aim for the central energy hub, Kale shouted. Every strike counts. The swarm is losing coherence. A massive wave of disruption swept across the formation, and the null swarm began to disassemble itself from within. Kale's voice was calm but filled with relief. It is over. You have done it. Humanity has prevailed. The swarm, once an unstoppable force, had been defeated, not by sheer firepower, but by human creativity, intuition, and adaptability. The aftermath was quiet. Ships repaired, systems recalibrated, and survivors checked on one another. Rylan walked among the crew, acknowledging their bravery, their improvisation, and their willingness to act despite fear. Humans had faced the unimaginable and prevailed. Kale approached him, helmet reflecting the fading energy of the swarm. "Commander, I must reveal the truth about why I came here. My mission was initially to eliminate you. I was instructed to prevent humans from interfering, to delay your involvement. But I observed your species and realized that humanity's unpredictability is essential. You had to lead, you had to act. That is why I changed my orders. I'm here to assist, not control. The galaxy now knows that humans are unpredictable, resourceful, and resilient. That is your true power. Commander, the fleet looks to you for guidance. You led them to victory. Humanity owes you a great debt. You inspire because you adapt, improvise, and overcome. That is why the galaxy respects you. That is why the Null Swarm could not predict you. Prepare for return to human space, Rylan ordered. We have fought well, but our people must rebuild, recover, and prepare for the future. Humanity has shown its strength today, but the galaxy is watching, and we will be ready. Humanity has earned its place among the stars, not through brute force, but through courage, creativity, and determination. Not because they were stronger, faster, or more numerous, but because they acted unpredictably, creatively, and with unwavering determination. That was the essence of humanity, the trait that no machine could calculate or overcome. As the fleet jumped back into hyperspace, heading toward human space, Rylan felt hope, strong, unwavering, and deserved. Humans had survived the impossible. They had won against an enemy that seemed unbeatable, and they had done so as humans, adaptable, inventive, and fearless. Kale's voice came one last time over the comms. "Commander, you have proven the mission's true purpose. Humanity is ready for any challenge. Lead them well. Today proved it. Tomorrow, we will face the stars and nothing will stop us." And the legacy of human ingenuity, creativity, and courage would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.